I'm Shakiba, a lead architect at SC Design Build, and welcome to episode 3 of Do You DADU. Today we are talking about design, how we move from feasibility and site constraints into creating a cottage home that is beautiful, functional, and truly tailored to the way someone lives. I'm joined by Suzanne Zar, founder of SC Design Build, to talk about how thoughtful design begins with listening and how a well-designed DADU can transform both a backyard and the way a property is used. Suzanne, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
When we begin designing a DADU, we don't usually start with the floor plan right away. We start by listening to our clients. What are the first things you want to understand about the homeowner, the property, and the way the space will be used?
Working in residential design in general becomes a very personal endeavor in that we're trying to get into the mindset of who's going to be using the property, and then we go from there.
How do you approach those site forces, and how do they begin to shape a DADU into something that feels like it truly belongs on that property?
Personally, this is just how I process information. I'm reading who I'm speaking with, but simultaneously, I'm also walking through just to kind of get the energy of the space, observing the light or feeling the direction of the wind, or getting a sense of what the topography could potentially yield if we are trying to integrate more naturally into the landscape. I'm just realizing it's kind of a very sensory experience for me to walk a property and that first blush experience. It's an opportunity to just kind of soak it all in various ways. And then, of course, from there, the creative gears start immediately turning in terms of its full potential.
You have also had the experience of designing for yourself and essentially becoming your own client. Did that change the way you think about listening to your clients and understanding what they truly need from a space?
It was kind of our lab from a design perspective as well, right? Like we got to test out certain building methodologies and finishes and materials and fixtures, and we kind of let loose a little bit more creatively.
That was so much fun.
It's so much fun. Yeah. And it is just a wonderful space to be in and now live next to and look down on. I mean, in the best possible way, because it's very much integrated into the slope lot.
Yeah.
And I enjoy its green roof, for example, that my main level looks over as if it's like a berm in the landscape. And I don't know.
What inspired the green roof, and how does it benefit the DADU?
So I think the green roof is such a cool feature of this home. I mean, there's some sustainability aspects to having a green roof that helps us heal our environment. But I would say the main driver was the aesthetic of it, and specifically from the perspective of the main home. I didn't want to look down onto roofing.
Yeah.
It could be the most beautiful roofing, but it just didn't feel like it would envelop me and experientially up here on the main home. I wanted the garden scape from the main home to remain intact, and I think it worked. And I can't see the activity of anything going on inside the DADU from the main house and vice versa. So the way the property was master planned and the way the relationship in terms of the orientation of the main house and the downslope DADU or DADU, I think works really well.
When we talk about sustainability, people often think first about materials or energy efficient systems, but Sustainability can also mean designing a home that is adaptable, durable, and usable for many years. How does that broader idea of sustainability influence your design decisions?
I don't necessarily, at this point in my career, separate the two. I think it's very much the right thing to do, but I also think that it's more comfortable living in a home with durable finishes and surfaces and that are low maintenance and have low life cycle costs. For example, the heating and cooling for the DADU, because of the well-insulated green roof, has been minimal, and the enhanced envelope in terms of the types of insulation that we used on the home and the fact that it tucks into the hillside. And there's so many aspects of sustainability that are just common sense and naturally driven by its site orientation and passive cooling, cross ventilation. And then there's aspects of sustainability that are a little bit more engineered. The idea of having radiant floors that require less energy. There is no cooling system in the DADU right now. It's intended to have cross ventilation with paddle fans. Every aspect of it is just all to promote health and well-being and to create a home that absorbs the rainfall as opposed to having a roof that just dumps it into our stormwater system. And yeah, it's very layered.
Can you share some of your design decisions for your own DADU?
I do see beauty in efficiency. I think that a space plan or a floor plan has to have a certain a certain logic, a certain honesty about it without feeling too contrived or wasteful. I know for my own personal DADU, I use every square inch. And people get surprised by the fact that it's only 750 square feet, not including a couple of these ladder up lofts that can be used for sleeping. But it can accommodate 6 people, potentially. And so for such a small space, physically, it feels a lot larger. And a lot of that has to do with the organization of the elements in the space and being generous with the areas where we gather, which is the kitchen, for example. It became a central hearth element within the space that I think was really important not to compromise. And there is still privacy in that it's 1 bedroom, 1 bath, but there's a pocket door that separates the hall bath from the main living space. So when it's closed, it feels like a dedicated bathroom to the bedroom. So the privacy is maintained, and the sleeping lofts offer flexibility, and the high ceilings and the texture on the ceilings that you get pretty close up to when you're up in that loft became another element of sort of psychological comfort in the space. It didn't feel cramped, and there's a whole line of clear stories above too, that even if you're up against that curved ceiling while up in the loft, which is carpeted because you're going to be either sitting or kids will be playing up there, the line of sight is still to the canopy of the trees, and it still feels open and airy. There's even a different character from loft to loft.
Yeah.
Like the loft that is on the north side, which has a corner window that overlooks a rain chain, is very meditative. You could just grab your little meditation pillow and sit on that and just stare out into the greenery while there's a water feature right there that's calming your nerves. I don't know. There's aspects of that, like you're saying, that indoor-outdoor connection that really melts away the limitations of a small footprint home. And I think tying back to nature is part of that health and well-being. It's part of sustainability, but I think it just goes hand in hand with good design. I think it's a collection of all my favorite things in many ways, and some new things that surprised even me. One of my favorite elements in the DADU is the Tom Dixon melt pendant that is hanging central in the space. And I remember when the design was on the boards, we were looking for a fixture that wasn't too small, wasn't too big, that anchored the space, and we even modeled it in our design just to be sure that the height of it would work. Because it was at a time where he had just come out with the fixture, and there wasn't a showroom nearby where I could go and physically look at it. So it was a little bit of a risk that I was so thrilled to see installed, and I think works really beautifully. And it looks very different on versus off, and has a warmth about it that feels like it's also another hearth in the space. There's no interior fireplace in the DADU. It has this light fixture instead that I think helps to organize the space really well, and that's an element I really enjoy. The countertops are just beautiful stone countertops that have a durability, but as at the same time, there's just a texture about the countertops and a softness that I'm really drawn to, that I think coordinated really well with the backsplash tile from Wow. For a small home, I didn't want too many different finishes in there. You have to kind of restrain yourself at the same time, just because the spaces all are experienced pretty close to each other. But what we did is we got very creative with the pattern of the tile itself. So the backsplash and behind the TV wall and the bathroom floor and hall, they're all of the same line of tile, but applied in very artful and creative ways. So it just became an artisanal space that felt very hand-touched. It didn't feel slapped together. There was a highly skilled craftsmanship that put the countertop together, that put the backsplash tile together with these really cool even outlets in the backsplash that try to disappear a little bit, and a general softness throughout the space. There isn't a stark white in there. There's the lighting and the finishes are intended to just make you feel relaxed. And actually the wall color itself is Benjamin Moore Calm, which is one of my favorite whites.
Color, yeah.
It has like a hint of lavender in it, which I genuinely think feels calming when you're in the space. So I don't know, and then I did this very creative mural of one of my favorite works of art behind the bed wall, or the headboard, and these beautiful pendants on either side from gray pants that also add another layer of craft and artistry in the space. So I think it's a unique experience being in this particular DADU. I think it's really wonderful to be able to receive guests and have them stay there and feel not just comfortable in the space and where it's functional and they're able to enjoy it, but it also is a form of my self-expression. And so I think all of our homes should be expressions of who we are. And I feel like if you walk into my home or into my DADU, you get a sense of who me and my family are. And if we're doing our jobs well, the same would be true for our clients' properties and their homes as well. It's for them and by them. We are just in service of bringing out what is the best possible outcome for them to express themselves.
Looking back at some of the DADUs and cottage homes you've designed for other clients, is there a particular project that challenged your assumptions or taught you something new about how people use the smaller spaces?
Oh yeah, every time, every project, there's some revelation, and that is because it is tailored for their use. And we had a project before COVID. Actually, it was I think 2018. We designed a really cool detached accessory dwelling unit for a home that was downhill along a waterfront property, and it was called upon for us to design it as its main entry space to the property itself as part of the entry sequence, but at the same time have it be surplus space for when they would invite family or friends over for extended stays, but at the same time have it be used as their daily gym. And so there's many different ways to create flexibility within these smaller footprint homes, and even looking at ways to trim out the spaces themselves using convertible furnishings, like a cool wall bed from Resource Furniture that will come down when you have that guest over, but serves as your office from day to day. So, yeah, I think we've had many specifics come in for each particular project in terms of what their design requirements are, but there's also, I think, flexibility has been the commonality throughout.
Suzanne, if a client brings a Pinterest board or inspiration images, how do you translate that into something that actually works for their site and budget?
With those cues and with our programming survey and with our direct dialogue and discussions and site visits, from there we put pen to paper. And I think sometimes the result can be surprising. It might not be a preconceived idea that our client has. Sometimes clients come to us and say, we'd like to do this, and dictate the design somewhat. And I think that's great. Again, it's a dialogue. And so we will follow that thought through. But we also ask if they'd be open for us to be more curious and see, what if we presented you with something you haven't even conceived of? And sometimes it is a pleasant surprise for them, because we'll come to the table with something that ends up maybe being a little bit more cost effective or more efficient. Or I do think that architects tend to get, generally speaking, a bad rap that we sometimes are unrestrained and go off script, and that we need to be dictated to. We work differently. We understand that we're in service of our clients. And I do think our creative approach is unique. It's not one that can be fulfilled at this point with AI. It's one that takes a little more discernment, a little more nuance and experience. And I think the end result is much better achieved when you have this methodical, thoughtful approach that really stems from a sense of curiosity of what is the highest and best use of this space and property, and how can we really optimize the parameters that we're working within, and all that to say it's fun. Like, what we do is just, I think the design exploration that we've established in our team charrettes, and as we like to introduce and usher our clients through, initially has that small, medium, large approach for exploration. And we always say the answer somewhere between small and large, right? Because we have to figure out where that edge is and then edit back from there. But I think we don't want to restrain ourselves too soon. And so we're always looking for clients that are on board, that kind of come along the ride with us, that curious, explorative, back and forth, just initially, until something resonates and it lands and it becomes harmonious with the budget, with the site, with the land use code and all of the above. But it takes a very playful approach. The creative challenge, I think, is the most gratifying thing. And then having a design build firm not only seeing it realized from just a programming survey and try to just check off the list, but actually do so creatively in a way that's inspiring and create spaces that you want to be in on paper or in a model, and then actually seeing it through construction and having it realized until our clients move in and inhabit the space and tell us about it and how much they're enjoying it and what a game changer it's been. I mean, it couldn't be more gratifying. Like, so thrilled to do what we do.
Another way to approach a DADU is to begin with a stock plan. Cities like Seattle and Kirkland, for example, offer pre-approved plans. Suzanne, what are your thoughts on starting with a stock plan, and when does that approach make sense?
I think it's a wonderful way for our local jurisdictions to promote this type of graceful density. And I'm hoping we have our own stock plans that we could add to the mix, because I think it's a great starting point for the DADU discussion. Not every generic plan will cleanly land on every site. There's obviously some adjustments and site planning and land use considerations when you're looking at pre-approved plans, but what a great starting point to understand how a floor plan could be potentially used for your family or whatever your goals are. So I think it's a great thing that Kirkland, Seattle, and other local municipalities are offering these pre-approved plans to help expedite the permit process, or just to have it be a little bit more accessible to more people.
Good DADU design begins long before finishes or floor plans. It starts with listening to the homeowner, to the site, and to the long-term goals for the property. A well-designed DADU should respond to real life. It should make the most of the site, create comfort with a smaller footprint, and offer flexibility as needs change over time. Suzanne, thank you for sharing your perspective on how design turns possibility into a home. Thank you everyone for joining us for episode 3 of Do You DADU. You can find more information about our work at suzannezar.com.